My name is Lucian Trent, and at my sister's wedding, her father-in-law looked right through me as if I wasn't there at all. He walked past without a nod, without a glance, carrying that quiet, practiced dismissal men like him perfect over a lifetime. I stood there in a tailored suit, drink in hand, knowing something he didn't. See, Roland Rowe, the man so proud of his last name he probably signs it in gold ink, had spent the last 6 months trying to buy out a tech company he didn't realize I co-founded. A company his own business depended on. A company I built from nothing while pulling my sister out of the wreckage of our old life. But Roland only saw what he chose to see, a nameless, titleless nobody. He saw the surface. That's what men like him do. And honestly, I didn't mind. Because a few minutes later, when I was called up for an impromptu speech, I would introduce myself. And when I did, everything about him would shift. His posture, his expression, his grip on the wine glass. Some people hate surprises. Roland went pale, and I simply smiled. They say the hardest part of loss is the silence that follows. That's true. But no one warns you about the noise that comes before it. The phone ringing at an hour it never should. The static in your ears when someone speaks the words you promised yourself you'd never hear. For me, it was my college advisor saying, "Lucian, there's been an accident. Your father is gone." Just like that. One moment, he was planning a trip to see me and my younger sister, Isolda. The next, I was driving back to a hometown that already felt unfamiliar without him. I was 22, drained from finals. Isolda was 17, 1 week away from her high school graduation. Our mother wasn't around. She'd left years earlier to reinvent herself with a new family. So, it was just us. 2 orphans, 1 car, and a future that collapsed overnight. The funeral passed in a haze. What followed was sharp and unforgiving. Debt. So much debt. My father had been self-employed, and somewhere along the way, everything had unraveled. Loans. Missed payments. Business liens. He must have tried to protect us, shielding us until the very end. But once the obituary ran, the creditors arrived fast and relentless. They took everything. The house. The car. His workshop. All we had left was the small suitcase of clothes I'd packed for spring break. My scholarship covered tuition, but rent, food, Isolda's education, we were on our own. That night, after the last relative left and the door clicked shut, I sat on the floor with Isolda. She was crying, knees pulled into her hoodie, and it hit me that no one else was coming. I was the only adult left in her world. So, I made a choice. I would finish school, find a job, any job, and keep us afloat. I worked in the campus cafe, took evening shifts as a courier, and slept maybe 4 hours a night. Some days, I walked into class still sweating from hauling boxes up 4 flights of stairs. Every dollar I earned stretched across 2 mouths, 2 lives. I lost my girlfriend somewhere along the way. She was kind, but she needed more than voicemail apologies and missed date nights. I let her go, not because I didn't care, but because I had nothing left to give. People talk about building character, like it's clean and intentional. Mine was forged in overdraft fees and bus transfers. It was built every time I looked at my little sister and knew she still deserved a future, even if I had to burn mine to light the way. After graduation, I didn't celebrate. No cap toss. No party photos. Just a quiet exhale and a job offer at a mid-sized firm handling back-end operations. It wasn't exciting, but it paid, and that was enough. I moved us into a modest 1-bedroom apartment. Isolda took the bedroom. I took the couch. She enrolled in community college while I balanced spreadsheets and client calls. Every night I cooked dinner, even if it was only rice and eggs. On weekends, I caught up on sleep in short, broken stretches. Still, even in the grind, I watched the horizon. I signed up for online courses, marketing, automation systems, SaaS platforms, anything to sharpen my edge. I didn't know when opportunity would come, but I promised myself I'd be ready. It arrived on a rainy Thursday evening. A message from Felix Marin, an old classmate who remembered my instincts. He and another friend were building a tech tool to automate back-end systems. He needed someone to manage operations and pitch early clients. I hesitated. It sounded risky, but it also sounded alive, and I hadn't felt alive in years. So I said yes. My life split in two. From 8 to 5, I wore slacks and answered to middle managers. From 7 p.m. to 2 a.m., I lived inside code bases, flowcharts, and pitch decks with Felix. We worked out of coffee shops and borrowed server space. Some nights, I fell asleep with my laptop glowing against my chest. Money stayed tight. Arguments happened. One co-founder walked away after a brutal 6-month dry spell. Felix and I stayed. Barely. Then came the breakthrough. A corporate client piloted our tool and cut their processing time by 40%. They told 3 others. Suddenly, we had demos scheduled back-to-back, inboxes overflowing, and feedback loops we barely had time to keep up with. A review on a major tech blog triggered our first real surge of inbound interest. Even then, I didn't quit my day job. I'd learned early how fragile stability could be. I saved every spare cent. I handled customer support tickets, invoicing, and system bugs during lunch breaks and late nights. Felix became the public face. He worked the rooms, smiled for cameras, gave TEDx talks. I stayed behind the curtain, and I preferred it that way. While others chased titles and LinkedIn clout, I chased something different. Peace of mind. A life where Isolde didn't have to count every dollar at the grocery store. A life where her future wasn't shaped by what we'd lost. She got into a state university on merit. I paid every bill on time. We had savings for emergencies, health insurance, appliances that actually worked. That felt like luxury. No one saw what it took to get there, and I didn't need them to. But that silence, the choice to stay unseen, meant people like Roland Rowe could meet me and assume I was insignificant. And I was fine with that. I'd rather be underestimated than misunderstood. I'd rather be invisible than falsely praised. Life, though, has a way of coming full circle, especially when your sister decides to get married. It was a Tuesday night when Isolde called. I just collapsed onto the couch, still in my work clothes, eating cold leftover pasta straight from the container. She sounded breathless, excited, but oddly hesitant. "Lucian," she said, "I have something to tell you." I assumed it was school, maybe a project or an internship. I wasn't ready for what came next. "I'm getting married." My fork froze midair. "You're what?" "To Damien," she said quickly, like tearing off a bandage. "We've been seeing each other seriously for a while." I didn't know how to tell you. I blinked. I'd met a Damien once in passing, but nothing like this. "Isolde married? That's huge. Are you okay?" She laughed, nervous but bright. "I'm more than okay. I'm happy. I just needed you to know before things moved further. He wants to meet you." That mattered. Anyone who wanted to marry my sister needed to want to meet me. I was her brother, yes, but I was also the one who stayed. I'd filled every role that counted. Parent, tutor, emergency contact, friend. If someone was stepping into her life now, I needed to look him in the eye and measure the shape of his soul. We planned a casual dinner that Friday. Nothing formal. I offered to cook. I still remember opening the door and seeing Damien there, flowers in one hand, a bottle of wine in the other, wearing a grin that tried just a bit too hard. Something about him felt familiar. We talked. He was polite, well-spoken, clearly devoted to my sister. But his last name nagged at me. "Rowe," I said slowly. "Any relation to Roland Rowe?" He hesitated a fraction too long. "He's my father." That's when it clicked. Roland Rowe was one of our largest enterprise clients. More than that, he'd been trying to acquire our platform for months. His emails were always wrapped in polite pressure, the kind that assumed he was doing us a favor by showing interest. Sharp suits, sharper tone, known for swallowing partnerships whole. Not cruel, just dismissive. Transactional. And now I was sitting across from his son. I kept my expression neutral, my voice steady. I didn't mention the company or business at all. This night was about Isolde. If Damien was a good man, I'd find a way to make peace with the rest. Later, Isolde pulled me aside in the kitchen. "You went quiet for a bit. Everything okay?" I nodded. "I'm just surprised. You really love him." "I do," she said. "He's not like his father, Lucian. He's kind. He listens. I studied her face. She wasn't asking for approval. She was glowing, and she never glowed easily. Okay, I said finally. Then I'm in your corner. Weeks passed. Wedding plans consumed her world. I helped where I could but stayed clear of the formal events until the family meet and greet. It was held at an upscale country club, all white tablecloths and waitstaff in black vests. Isolde asked me to come, and I agreed, for her more than anyone else. That's where I met Roland face to face. The moment I walked in, his eyes scanned me, shoes, suit, posture, before drifting away. When we were introduced, he gave a limp handshake and said, "Oh, you're just her brother." I assumed her father would be here. "Our father passed away years ago," I replied. He gave a brief nod and moved on. Then came the question I expected. "So, what is it that you do again?" There it was, that investor instinct, searching for pedigree. "I work corporate," I said. What I said was true, in a way. He didn't hide his lack of interest. He didn't even try. And that was fine. I wasn't there to impress him. Still, a small part of me, the part one usually kept buried, whispered, "You'll regret that." I told Felix about the encounter later that night. He laughed and said, "The universe has a strange sense of humor." The weeks flew by, and soon the wedding day arrived. Isolde looked radiant, the kind of beauty that didn't come from the dress or the makeup. It came from knowing you were loved and loving back without fear. She squeezed my hand before walking down the aisle and whispered, "Thank you for everything." I just smiled. At the reception, I stayed out of the spotlight, chatting quietly with guests. Then I saw Roland approach, with two other men. He passed right by me again, not even slowing down. It was deliberate, calculated, and I felt nothing. Nothing except quiet certainty. He still didn't know who I was. Not really. But he was about to. I hadn't planned to speak. There was no mention in the program, no cue for a brother of the bride's speech. I'd already done my part, walked Isolde down the aisle, stood tall for photos, raised my glass during the toasts. That was enough. I didn't need the stage. But someone must have added my name to the list. A catering staff member tapped my shoulder and said, "You're next." 2 minutes. I blinked. Next for what? She pointed toward the stage. "Speech." "The mix ready." I could have declined. Maybe I should have. But something in me, a mix of fatigue, pride, and memory, told me not to. This was my sister's wedding. The closest thing I had to a daughter was stepping into a new life. And the room still didn't know who I was. So I stood, buttoned my jacket, and walked to the front. "Good evening," I began, my voice steady. "My name is Lucian Trent. I'm Isolde's brother." That got their attention. But growing up, I wasn't just her brother. After our father passed unexpectedly, I became her guardian. I was 22. She was 17. We had no other family. Our mother had moved on long before. The room shifted. Glasses lowered. Forks paused. I told them I was finishing college when it happened, and I couldn't afford to fall apart. Not when she needed food, a roof, and tuition. I worked days, nights, weekends. I slept less than I should admit. I lost friends. I lost someone I loved. I glanced at Isolde. She was already crying. "But we made it," I said softly. "She made it because she's brilliant and brave, and because she has a heart that forgave me for the moments I wasn't enough." A quiet rustle moved through the room. Even Roland had turned fully toward me. "There's something else," I added, my voice lifting slightly. During those years, while just trying to survive, I helped build a startup, a software platform. Some of you may even use it. That line landed harder than I expected. Heads tilted. Guests exchanged looks. "My co-founder, Felix," I said, nodding toward him, "took that leap with me. We started with borrowed code and broken laptops. Today, we support some of the largest firms in the country." I let the silence sit. I didn't come here to talk business. I share this because it's part of the same story. The one that led me to this room, this day, this moment. I turned to Isolde and Damien. "I'm proud of you both. You've found something rare: trust, partnership, joy. And I'm honored to say you're ready. I stepped away from the mic, nodded to the applauding room, and headed back to my table. I didn't get far. Roland Rowe appeared beside me like a shadow pulled from the wall. He extended his hand, smile tight. Lucian, was it? That was quite a speech. I shook his hand, firm, but not eager. Thank you. You're the co-founder of Yi, he said. I nodded. Yes. The company you've been trying to acquire. His smile slipped, just slightly. I had no idea, he said. Why didn't you say anything when we met? I held his gaze. Because I wanted you to see who I was when you thought I was nobody. He didn't answer. He didn't have to. I smiled politely. Enjoy the evening, Mr. Rowe. Then I walked past him, back to Felix, who raised an eyebrow but said nothing. We clinked glasses, and the tension melted away. The rest of the night was smooth and joyful. Isolde danced like someone finally free of old shadows. Damien was gracious. Roland remained civil. But something in his eyes had changed, less arrogance, more calculation. That was fine. I hadn't said anything untrue. And I hadn't said everything either. We never sold the company to Roland Rowe. Not out of spite. Not even because of how he treated me. The offers were impressive on paper. But I'd learned to look beyond numbers. His interest wasn't rooted in respect. It was built on the belief that everything and everyone has a price. I don't do business with men who only recognize your value after reading your resume. So Felix and I stayed independent. We scaled with intention. We didn't need a buyout. We needed room to grow on our own terms. Ironically, Rowe Industries still licenses our platform. His employees submit support tickets through the same portal as everyone else. We respond promptly, professionally, always courteous, never personal, strictly business. Damien never brought it up. He respects boundaries and, more importantly, he respects Isolde. Over time, we've built something close to trust. I don't hold his last name against him. He isn't his father. He never was. Isolde is thriving. She has peace in her life now, real peace. She teaches, tends her garden, volunteers on weekends. And she smiles in a way she didn't when we were younger, when everything felt like it could collapse at any moment. That smile is what I fought for. That's the return on my investment. Sometimes people still assume I'm just the man in the background. Quiet, unremarkable. I let them believe it because I know the truth. The people who dismiss you when you're silent are the same ones who rush to respect you once your title is announced. By then, their respect means nothing. Real respect shows up when no one is watching. It isn't a reaction. It's a choice. Roland's greatest mistake wasn't underestimating me. It was assuming that being unseen meant being unimportant. I've never needed the spotlight. All I ever needed was to know my sister would be okay. And now she is. That's more than enough for me. If this journey has taught me anything, it's this. You don't rise by being loud or forcing people to notice you. You rise by standing firm in who you are, quietly, steadily, with dignity. When people finally take notice, let it be on your terms, not theirs. Because in the end, what matters most isn't who applauds you. It's who you protected when no one was watching.